brought to you by the Bayou City Season 2. My name is Jesus Acevedo Jr., and I'm joined as I am week in and week out. Not so much lately, but on each episode is the Zodiac GM. What's going on, Zodiac?
Hey, what's going on? What's up? What's up?
Zodiac, the best NBA season is over, Zodiac. Can you believe it?
Yes, and it's already starting all the off-season soon. It's happening too soon, actually.
I agree with you, and I'm glad you brought that up. I hadn't even mentioned with you, but I've had those same thoughts, especially with, and yes, we're going to talk about the OKC Thunder winning the championship, and obviously we're going to talk about the KD trade, and that's actually where I want to start is
okay.
I feel like these moves, because that's not just the KD, we had the Desmond Bain as well, kind of taking attention away from the NBA Finals, and I saw somebody had this tweet that say, can you imagine in the NFL during Super Bowl week, a team making a trade of the KD Durant caliber on the day of the Super Bowl? That just wouldn't happen.
That's so strange, right?
That just would not happen because the commissioner is like, we need all attention on the Super Bowl, So I wonder if in the future maybe this is something that it's in the contract or something where it's like no deals can happen or announce but which this sucks because technically it's not announced, but it was leaked, right? Shams through his sources. So
okay, because I was thinking about the whole trade deadline. I mean, I know within a season, does that sort of, I guess, become redundant once season ends before playoffs? Is that like the deadline? But it's not an official trade then, right?
Pretty much. Essentially,
Okay.
So when the draft happens, the number 10 pick, which is going to the Suns, when that player gets drafted, he's going to put on a Houston Rockets hat because the trade is not official.
I see.
But of course, we all know it is, right?
I see.
So,
that makes sense.
But yeah, that goes to your point, because I think it did take a little bit of the spotlight away from a Game 7 between the OKC Thunder and Indiana Pacers, which we already mentioned. The Thunder pulled it out, but Game 7, this I definitely want to get into it now. It was a Game 7 that not a lot of people saw. Let's be honest, Zodiac. I picked Pacers in 6. You rightfully picked OKC in 7. And I think this series was better than we could have expected. They just released the ratings. It was among one of the highest finals game ever because of that. Game 7, obviously, of all of those that saw that game, we know what happened in the first quarter. Tyrese Halliburton starts going off, and then it pops. Achilles heel, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, man. He's such a talent, and you can just feel the pain. Just it brought bringing the whole morale down for the whole team. I mean, you could just sense the whole Pacers team just kind of putting their heads down. And in a way, honestly, I kind of wanted, since the Pacers have been like an underdog all season, And to me, when that happened, I mean, the back of my mind, I was like, okay, this injury just happened to Halliburton. Wouldn't it be like amazing if for somehow, some way, it's just like this movie, like, where they somehow, some way pull it off and still end up winning Game 7 with their best player down. And, I was kind of anticipating and kind of hoping that in a sense, like rooting for the underdog. But, okay, you got to give it to OKC. They just came back and just did what they had to do. And, then there you go. They're the 2025 NBA champions, and as anticipated, they've had one of the best synergies in the whole entire league, just looking up and down the roster, including their front office. But wow, it was an amazing Game 7, or series, as a matter of fact. And, you got to give shout out to the Indiana Pacers for giving it their all.
Yeah, I know. Underdogs start to hold. I thought in that moment, in the third quarter, I thought there was a moment where they were going to keep pace with them, but then OKC just started putting too much pressure on them, and I don't want to say they were shook. I expected some players to step up that didn't, like Pascal Siakam. I was like, this is his game now. He has to step up, and he just, he started taking over, and then I'm not sure what happened. There was a period in the third quarter where he didn't play so many minutes. I don't know if it was, tired, winded, what have you. But TJ McConnell and Aries Fire Sign stepped up. He took it to them. What did he go on a 12-0 run by himself? Against Thunder? I mean, that's a man. If he can develop a 3-point shot, watch out, man. He's somebody that he's a starting point guard in this league. Like,
who he reminds me of, and it's this player. So it's an old school player, and this player so happened to be the same sign as TJ McConnell, who's an Aries, and I'm pretty sure you remember him. You remember a player by the name of Bob Sura who used to play for
Yes,
the Rockets?
yes, yes.
He reminds me so much
Mm.
like him. And I remember back then when I had watched him, I'm like, this Bob Sura guy's all over the place. I mean, he was sort of like a Jason Kidd, like a poor man Jason Kidd doing everything, assists. You look up the stats and then he'll have like, 8 assists, 9 boards, 13 points. And he reminds me so much like him. And that's the type of energy that an Aries player brings, especially at the guard position. You look at the Kyle Lowry, you look at, even Kyrie Irving himself, what's that guy? Braun. I can't remember his first name from Denver. These are all
Yeah.
Aries player. Even Alvarado, Jose Alvarado from the Pelicans. These are all Aries players. You get a sense of the type of energy they bring, and it's just a coincidence that that's what they bring to the table.
And but yeah, Pacers in the end were just a little bit too much for the Pacers, and it's unfortunate. I feel we were robbed of what could have been a great game seven. I mean, he started the
Right.
game what 3 or 4 from threes or
He
three of
was
three
on
from threes. He
fire.
was on fire.
When
He
I
was.
saw that, I'm like, wow, okay, this is gonna be interesting.
I feel like we were in for one of those classics down to the wire game sevens. And I
Hmm.
think I was reading game sevens in the NBA finals. They are rare, right? We haven't had one. Last one was 2016.
2016. Yep.
But even then, the margin of victory it's always been plus minus 7 points. So
Hmm.
it's always been close games. Obviously this one didn't go that route. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's very unfortunate. I think it's also Thunder, like you said. I always remember. I think last season when they traded for Alex Caruso and they signed. I
Hmm.
said, Hardenstein, you put him
Such a
in your
good
top
pickup.
tier. Yeah, you
Yeah.
put him in your top tier right away.
Hmm.
Uh, because of
But
what
but
they brought.
you're
Not even
right.
from their skills or from their veteran perspective and gameship they brought and their skills, but just from the synergy. You said, wow, this just put them even better because they were already a strong team right before they
And
made those
and
signings.
the interesting thing is, even before last season, when they still had Josh Giddey, the whole entire time I kept on looking at the OKC Thunder roster and their makeup and their featured player. And for some reason, obviously, Josh Giddey always stood out as the odd one out because he did. He was the odd one out, right? He was a Libra, and he just didn't click well, with SGA, and then the way the roster makeup was, and it was an odd fit. And it sort of stood out even more when they went in the playoffs. Remember last season, they hardly played Josh Giddey. He was sort of like a weak link, and that sort of shows of what the coach's ability, compatibility come into play. Because in a sense, that's the way I look at it. At least Mark Daigneault didn't have faith in him,
Mm.
because I felt like that energy wasn't what he was looking for, and of course he was being exploited. I mean, he was just being. I can't remember who they were facing, but yeah, he was just exposed. That was the word I was looking. He was just exposed, and next thing you know, he got traded. And once I saw that trade going to Chicago, and in return Alex Caruso, I said, "Wow." At that time, Chicago still had Zach LaVine. Remember, so I had
Hmm.
given them sort of like a B plus or B rating because I wasn't sure what they were going to do with LaVine, but that was still a good trade for both sides because Giddy fits the Chicago Bulls roster with White and Kobe White, and also Billy Donovan as a head coach, being a Gemini. Gemini, Libra, Aquarius. Those three right there. Running the show in Chicago, and that's part of the reason why I think Jalen Green fits that team too. But yeah, I'm going far ahead. But yeah, Alex Caruso fits so well with this OKC Thunder team, and it showed this
Mm.
in this NBA Finals.
And I like that you tweeted out about the whole Thunder organization, how even from the owner
Yeah,
on down to the front office, they're all just aligned. And I
you're
mean,
right.
just there was, I think I saw one odd signing there, but it's still there. It's
Hmm.
not gonna be all perfect, right? But just
You're
aligned
right.
all the way down. And
Yeah.
and I think what's scary is about this Thunder is this could be the start of a dynasty for them.
Exactly.
They're young. Um, they have a lot of picks to play with, a lot of good picks to play with, a lot of players
Hmm.
on their contract. I think 2 3 years before they really have to start paying Jay Will or Chet. I mean, Chet. We haven't even seen the best of Chet yet. This is what
Mm-hmm.
his second season, really, right?
Yep. Yep.
So we still haven't even seen the best of him. So I think they're going to be a force to reckon with here for the next 3-5 years.
Oh.
And on the flip side, I think the Pacers, if they can do in the playoffs for the regular season,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
which of course the wrinkle to that is that there's no Tyrese Halliburton. So now is, do you give TJ McConnell the start from the get go and have him, give him the keys to the offense until
Mm-hmm.
Tyrese Halliburton gets back? But I know one thing you've always said is that you love the bench that the Pacers have and how they use that. So I wonder what moves, if any,
Yeah.
they will make, knowing that Tyrese is going to be out at least 9 months, right? So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's amazing. You know who this OKC Thunder makeup reminds me of is actually the 2016 Cavaliers. Ironically, you remember when LeBron James was running that team? They had Dan Gilbert, who's a Capricorn, and then the makeup, and also David Griffin is executive. He was a Scorpio. So their front office, I actually mix similar makeup of what the OKC Thunder have, and also, ironically, the odd person or the odd player from that group that won the 2016 championship was Kyrie Irving, who's an
Mm.
Aries. So when he was like the odd player that was, with that group of full, I think it was like maybe 10 or 11 players that was compatible to LeBron James. Basically, it was LeBron James' team.
Mm.
And
Mm.
and then the coach was Ty Lue, being a Taurus. Um, and if you flip flop and you look at the Thunder, same thing. Their odd element, the odd player is also an Aries in Jalen Williams, and then they
Mm.
made it happen. So it's sort of like having 10 players that's compatible to SGA with Jalen Williams being that odd element. But it's the reason why those are okay, because the synergy strength is strong enough to have that. There's not really
Mm.
too much of imbalance, and then that's the same makeup the Thunder, I'm sorry, the Cavaliers had in 2016, where Irving was sort of that lone synergy, the energy that was sort of out of scope from the rest, but it still made it work.
Well, the Thunder get their first title in franchise history. um, Pacers will lick their wounds and come back. Try to make it
Hey,
go another bit, but man, Halliburton and
Halliburton
the
might be
Pacers,
out for the whole year, though, right? Is that
nine
my
months.
understanding?
So that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It could be maybe next year after
Mm-hmm.
All-Star break. So that's what I'm saying. Pacers gotta have some questions to answer as far as how they retool. Not retool completely. You don't have to, but just how you approach next season, knowing you're out without your star player. So, but yeah. Speaking of star players, Kevin Durant, as we mentioned, made news before Game 7 when he was traded to the Houston Rockets for Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, the 10th pick in this year's draft, and 5 second-round picks, which for as soon as I saw the trade, I was like, we're giving them too many second-round picks.
You're
uh,
right.
but yeah, so KD comes to the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets now complete their collection of former OKC stars, Harden, Westbrook, now Durant. You could add the role players with Steven Adams and Jeff Green as well. But yeah, so Kevin Durant with the Houston Rockets, I think, it's their title odds jumped exponentially. I think now they're
You're right.
second after OKC Thunder. Um, it's really something you were saying before we hit record, is that this is the type of player that they needed, right?
You're
This is
right.
who
Yeah.
who Jalen Green should have been, that they were hoping for, right? And
You're right.
in the playoffs, he didn't deal well with how the defense was attacking him, or coming at him. So, but I think there's also a chance you take the swing, because I think it was also, let's be honest, I think the Houston Rockets, I don't want to say robbed the Suns, but pretty much, they didn't give up much but Jalen Green and Dylan Brooks, really, right?
Yeah.
And Jalen Green, I mean, we saw what kind of player he can be. I think he's going to be a good player in this league. I
Mm-hmm.
always say he reminded me, he has he maybe a better version of Bradley Beal,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
but
Yep.
a player that I can score, but I need more buy-in for him, and maybe a different location would do that for him. You know, I mean, we've seen it
You're
happen
right.
with Tyrese Halliburton. You know, not that Tyrese Halliburton was struggling with the Kings, and I'm not saying that Jalen Green struggled. He's struggling in the playoffs, not in the regular season. But look, but the Rockets didn't trade any of their big pieces. You know, no Sengun, no Thompson, no Jabari, no
Cam
Reed,
Whitmore,
Shepard, like
Reed.
Cam Whitmore,
Yep.
no Tari Eason. I mean, that's so, shout out to the Houston Rockets GM Rafael Stone, a Gemini, stand up represent.
There you
You
go.
know, you know
Gemini Leo
that
Moon.
that Gemini Leo Moon. I think that's a dangerous combination. Because Geminis are talkers; they can convince you of a lot of things, and I'm sure things got to talking, seeing that no deals were coming, so he let that tongue do the work. But yeah,
Yeah.
and I think you've said it, because there's these rumors that Kevin Durant to the Rockets rumors have been flying since last season. Not last season, but
Yeah.
last offseason. And you've always said from the get go that Durant on the Rockets just works to perfection.
And
So
he's the
now break
player
it
they
down for
need.
us. Break it down for us.
Yeah, Durant being that Libra energy is a cardinal energy, right? So cardinal energy, especially with LeBron, Kevin Durant's status, even with LeBron, they're both cardinal energies. They bring that natural leadership, and you can see it. I mean, it's very obvious. Even Team USA, they were the two that stood out as the leaders of the group, right, along with Steph Curry. But the thing with the cardinal energy. The reason why I feel like it mixes very, very well with the Rockets because the Rockets are fixed dominant, which is a good thing, but it's like they need that quote unquote enabling energy, and that's what Durant brings to the Rockets. And ideally, it would have been nice had they kept Jalen Green because I felt like Jalen Green would have benefited so much with Durant. With Durant playing with Durant, along with Sengun, of course, and Amin Thompson. But of course, you have to give up, some talent as well. But um, Kevin Durant with this Houston Rockets team as their main primary focus, along with Sengun, along with Amin Thompson, I think it's going to be a big, big jump next season. The one thing I'm keeping an eye out for is exactly what they're going to do with Van Vliet. I've heard they might, extend, keep him. But I'm kind of unsure with that, to be very honest with you. I feel like they should, and it's just only my opinion. I feel like they should utilize or allocate that money, elsewhere. As far as filling in that 2 guard position, and also finding maybe a veteran point guard, the likes of Drew Holiday if he's available. Mike Conley, or even we just watched him in NBA Finals. T.J. McConnell himself, Jose Alvarado, these, or even Malcolm Brogdon. These are the type of point guards I feel like would fit so well with this Houston Rockets team, and have a strong connection with Ime Udoka, those players mentioned, because Van Vliet, he's a great player. He's a Pisces Virgo moon, by the way. Great player, and he can adapt, and he's a veteran. He's a champion, of course, but it's just not the right team for him. And I was sort of surprised, say, if I were the Phoenix Suns, I would have gone after maybe some sort of sign and trade or whatever with Van Vliet as much as possible. I would have gone after Jabari Smith, Cam Whitmore, Reed Shepard right away. But they ended up getting players that didn't fit their team. And, they got talent. I think they're, by the end of the day, I think they're going to reroute Jalen Green, from my understanding, which makes sense because they can't have 3 shooting guards. I think Devin Booker might even play the point, but it's just an odd mix. It's just a weird mix, having Jalen. And I feel bad for Jalen because the narrative on him is not that great, right? It's because I've always felt, as even his rookie season, it's just that he just had one. I've always felt he needed a point guard that fits him. Van Vliet wasn't that guy. And I knew that even when they signed Van Vliet. And, he's a fixed energy playing with all these other fixed energies. It's sort of like fixed energies they're resistant to change. Playing a fixed energy playing with another fixed energy is kind of awkward, but you can still make it work, with Ime Udoka playing in there. But as you can get a sense, Ime Udoka's structure is more primary on defense, which makes them a strong team. Their offense was so-and-so, but they still made it work because they had a lot of talent. Sengun's a talented player, but now you're adding Durant to the mix, even better. I think the Rockets going to go to another level on that.
Yeah, it's gonna be a fun next NBA season, and I also like to think that I think Kevin Durant saw your tweet about how his sign connects with the Rockets. So I think he saw that. I
I
think
think
my goal.
ideally, I mean, even if he saw it, I think it's still a great fit for him. I think him being a Libra would consider all aspect of anything, and Libras are very, very clever, very, very smart. And Durant he's not a fool, and I think the thing about Libras is that they care a lot about their perception, rightfully so. I mean, Durant's been one of the best players out there, and then to have a narrative of you, oh, you're not as good as such and this and that. I saw it more as like, hey, Durant hasn't been on the right teams. The way I see Durant, if he happened to be on the right teams or even have the right quote unquote A plus synergy duo, which he hasn't really had in his career, his whole narrative would be so much different. It would be unbelievable. Jordan had Pippen.
Mm.
Durant, yes, he had Irving. Yes, he had Steph Curry. Yeah, which is great talent. But in terms of synergy, it wasn't really that best for him. Him being with the Rockets, him playing next to Amin Thompson, that's a duo I'm looking forward to. Even trio with Sengun, it's going to be amazing. Their setup with having their top three players that's compatible with their head coach reminds me of the Boston Celtics championship years of last season. Their makeup. That's kind of how the way I see the Houston Rockets. But again, I'm looking forward to see who they pick up at the two guard and the point guard. I'm curious because that's going to affect their starting unit, and I've heard rumors that they might start Jabari, which in my opinion, I feel like he should be a backup. Just let Durant play at his 2-3 years or however many years he's going to continue his career. And then that way Jabari can sort of take over that role. But starting, I'm not sure. I don't feel like it's going to be a good synergy as far as for starting unit goes. But we'll see. We'll see what happens.
What's one player that I would like to see is a point guard.
Who?
And we'll start off before to say that all rumors are that Fred VanVleet will come back at a cheaper contract.
Oh,
And,
okay.
and also to say Kevin Durant will also sign for a cheaper contract that he's worth. I think he wants to make sure that the Rockets are well positioned, right, to spread the money so they can build a true contender. But all indication of that Fred VanVleet will be back unless something happens from what I've read. But one player that I think would be great on this team, like just fit so perfect and will make this team better, is Jrue Holiday.
100%.
I mean, not even before you tell me. I know he's a Gemini, but just his playoff experience, his defense, his grit, his just what he brings, that alone. But then when you add that he's a Gemini who connects with the Libra, with the Leo, within
Ime Udoka.
Aquarius, Ime Udoka, so Durant, Thompson, Leo. So, and I mean, Geminis are also mutable. So I mean, it's
Yeah.
him with this team would just be wow. Be chef's kiss,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's gonna happen.
If I was the Rockets, I mean, I would try my best to get Jrue Holiday. I mean, it would be so unbelievable how well he would connect with this starting group. And if he was to join the Houston Rockets, that would be Ime Udoka's go-to man. Because I find
Yeah,
that I always look for that head coach to point guard because that's important. You
yeah,
need to for a head coach, you want your point guard to have the same vision as you, as far as for an energy sense, and for your point guard to understand you. Easy, a Leo Gemini combination. Oh, it's unmatched. Like it's unbelievable how the connection will be so natural, and they don't even have to talk. They can just look at each other and say, "I already know what you're thinking. I'm going to go ahead and follow that game." That's all. That's
yeah.
it. And
Which is
you're 100% right.
interesting because they have his brother Aaron Holiday, but all respect to Aaron, Drew's a better player.
You're right. No, Aaron Holiday fits this team.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
yeah,
that
for sure.
his role
Yep.
is not as in high influence as
Right, right.
But Jrue Holiday starting for this team, even like the Malcolm Brogdon, either one of those two is the two players that I would personally target. But Van Vliet, yeah, he's he would work just fine. But I feel like in terms of synergy goes, where it would really, really connect and where teams will go into Toyota Center facing the Rockets and be like, oh man, this team's gonna be hard to beat. that's kind of what I'm kind of aiming for the Houston Rockets to again. I think Drew Holiday will sort of cement that type of fear, you know. So yeah.
If only, but I think Fred VanVleet's coming back. And look, he earned the chance to come back on this team. I mean, he played well all last season. I mean, he was one of probably our second best playoff player after Alperen Sengun, and you know he has that playoff experience, the championship experience. So I think he's coming back, and I think this team. I think the Rockets are going to be. I think I told you this whenever I called you after this happened. I think they might be a better team, but maybe not get the second seed, you know, or they might just either say they're going to run and they're just going to be the number one seed in the Western Conference. You know,
no, I think Ime Udoka is smart. I
yeah.
think they're gonna be a very, very strong team right off the bat. Barring health, of course, good health. You know,
Right.
everything else falls into place. The Rockets will be a scary team. Sengun, I mean,
That
the
two-man
stock
game with Sengun and Durant is going to be killer, man.
Sengun's stock has just risen
Yep.
like I don't know how many. Sengun will benefit so much off of Durant being there, you know, because now it's gonna be a little bit hard for teams to double team. And Amin Thompson's IQ, he can play, you know, he can slash. I mean, you know, they're probably gonna, you know, go off of Amin Thompson because of a shooting deficiency, but Amin Thompson is just too smart of a player. He'll make things happen, you know. So I'm very curious to see what the Rockets will end up doing.
Yeah, and you know, Udoka got his extension, and look, you know, I'm sure he's close to Rafael Stone, a Gemini Leo connection right there. So, like you say, you know, they're brewing this great team together, and it's great to see that. You know, and also, you know, we're gonna have a lot more Houston Rockets games in prime time, right? We might have a Christmas day. A Christmas game on Christmas. You know, so
yeah, Durant's gonna be happy in Houston. And
I mean, we all saw that we all saw the clip of when him and his agent were looking at, you know, like
what's his agent's name? I can't remember his name.
I actually don't know, but there's a tweet if you can look him up.
I had looked him up. Yeah. And guess what his sign is?
Gemini.
A Sagittarius. I mean, Sagittarius Libra connection is very, very strong as well. You know who's a Sagittarius Libra connection? And part of the reason why Giannis and Doc Rivers, you know, like, you see what I'm saying?
Speaking of which, just to mess with it, just to kind of dabble in it, here the Rockets and Giannis out there, a lot of rumors, like, which is interesting because if we were to come, he would fit this team as long as they don't trade any, like, you know, any like air signs or, you know, Leo or, you know, but
you're right.
He would fit this team just as well too.
100%. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Positional synergy might be a little bit off. But overall synergy, great fit. Positional synergy meaning because Durant is there. And also, hopefully, if Sengun stays. See, I don't think it would benefit the Rockets much if Sengun is being traded. But
I agree.
I feel like the Bucks will target Sengun, rightfully so. Because Giannis is not just any player. He's a talented, elite player, you know. So
now, here's the thing. Because you could trade Giannis for
Jabari, Van Vliet,
Van Vliet, can't win more. A couple picks.
Reed Shepherd.
I don't know. I want to see what Reed can. I don't know. But yeah, I don't think because we also forget the Rockets have a lot of draft capital. You know, they still got those high value picks. So, but I don't
keep
think
an eye on the Bucks because their synergy has been downtrending, and in my opinion, I think, you know, if they do struggle at any point this upcoming season, hey, just be on the lookout. You know, Rockets might be that team to grab them. You know, and Bucks. That's only if Bucks become sellers. You know,
right? That's true.
So we'll see.
There you go. Well, Zodiac, any last words on this final episode of this season 2 of the Hoopstrology podcast and you know of this NBA season?
Follow us on Hoopstrology and the Zodiac GM, and you know,
follow me, Jesus_Acevedo Jr, and follow us at the Bayou City, and don't forget to subscribe. See ya.